Against, anybody else?
Hi, my name is Andy Smith. I live on Beverly Street. I feel
We
like
need
I'm-
you to project again, we can't hear
I'm
you.
sorry. My name is Andy Smith. I live on Beverly Street. I feel real strange saying this, opposing anything but from the church. I attended Christ United when I was a child and early teen. Sorry to hear that they felt the need to close. But listening to what was said tonight, the gentleman said there was more than one alternative. I think he may have said special exemption or conditional use or something. I don't know what's going to happen in Covington or that neighborhood in the next 50 years, but I'd hate to see the land hindered by a zoning change that might not be, to the best of the neighborhood. And I don't deny that there's a need, but by the same token, if there's an alternative that wouldn't be quite as permanent, I think it's something that ought to be explored. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anybody else against? Okay.
I'm not against, but can I ask a quick question? Is this like the entire,
You got 3 minutes.
Susan Crowder, I live on Jackson Street in Covington, is the entire Department of Social Services moving to the church if they get this?
Yes.
They're closing the other building?
Yes.
Okay.
Was that quick enough?
Yes.
Okay,
Quick
thank
enough.
you.
What is 30, or was it 3 minutes?
Got 2 minutes left.
What?
Got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, you got 2 minutes
Oh,
left.
that's pretty much ahead of the movement.
Okay. Hearing,
I've got
3 minutes. Tell us your
3
name.
minutes. Robert Law, 211 East Prospect. I'm the backdoor neighbor on the alley. Something coming, I'm for all the social Christian help that can be given, but there's been no detail. I wasn't notified myself of anything other than Bernie telling me. And I'd like to know what the projected project is going to be there. Is this going to be a come and go center, or is this going to be a 24-hour center? I've gotten and would like to have some kind of information on what's going on there.
Yeah, sure.
I'm happy to speak to that. And I'm not trying to push away from the mic either.
And yeah, go ahead and get into this because I think that's important. If you'll talk about what Embrace does when they come in, how it works, and
Yeah, and I'll ask Janelle
Am I
to come
allowed
up here
to
with
talk
me
again?
too.
If he's allowed to talk, am I allowed to talk again?
I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, no, I just want to clarify, so too.
Yeah.
So he's not part of the public, he's representing.
he's representing the project.
requester.
I'm gonna allow this, Mr. Moncrief. I'll get back to you. Give me a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so as far as how the space would be used, the majority of the existing building would be used as office space for the Department of Social Services. The smaller slice of the pie would be used by our Embrace Ministry. Embrace Ministries aren't prescriptive. We come into communities and they tell us what they need, what the community needs. So what works in Waynesboro may be something completely different than what works in Covington. So we look at what the assets in the community are and what the needs are, and that's still work that we have to do. So there's that, and then the only other thing I'd say that I forgot to say earlier about the parking is we do have a parking lot that's across the street, across Highland Avenue, which would be available for the social services folks to use as well.
Okay, is there anybody else that needs to speak against? Did you get your question? Because you still got about a minute and a half.
Well, and that's, the traffic is another concern of mine. I do park in the alley back there, and there's very little traffic, even with the church. Of course, I go to church, so it never did bother me anyway. But that's kind of a secluded little alley there, and would like it not to have an abundance of traffic going down it, much less it's not maintained well. So more traffic means it's going to have rough holes in it. But again, I'm not anything that helps people, I'm not against, but that is my backyard, and I don't like having a bunch of unnecessary public traffic.
And we would be open to anything that worked from the city's perspective as far as signage, as far as anything we could do to put that alley to its best use. We don't have again, a specific need for it to be used a certain way. We would want to do what worked for the community.
Mr. Smith, we're going to address the parking and all that when it's my turn.
Okay.
Mr. Moncrief, I'm going to give you 1 minute.
Yeah, no, just one thing, what he just brought
1
up.
minute. Ask
is
your
regarding
question, make your comments.
The construction, are they gonna have to do construction in there? You know, to realign the building, you know?
In the alley or?
No, inside.
No.
You know, to make the office spaces, do they have to have construction come in? That'll be another thing. That,
Putting cubicles.
Putting in.
or just cubicle, but no big trucks and things like that. That's why.
Good question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moncrief, for keeping that brief. Okay, at this point, I'm going to close the public comment section.
Close.
Okay. It's time for us to ask our questions. It's your turn again. All right, folks. Q&A time.
I got one. This facility will be just like social services is now. It'll be open from 9 to 5 and closed on weekends, right? That's how they work it now.
That's the plan, and it would be like it is now. The only time you would see any time after that would be a CPS or an APS worker having to go in overnight if they get called out.
Okay, thank you.
Parking. How many cars can you put in that parking lot across the street?
20, 30. About 20 cars, maybe up to 30.
Do you anticipate that being full during DSS hours?
Could I add something? We have, I'm the benefits manager at Social Services. We have a lot of telework opportunities for our workers. So the majority of our workers, benefit worker side, and that's what takes up the majority of the space. The majority of them works from home.
Okay.
So it's not going to be fully staffed every single day.
That helps.
So the day I went by there and I saw 30 cars
You've
there.
got to realize drug task forces in there, voter registrars in there, and the voting season just passed, so when you went by there could have
Also,
possibly
there's
had something to do with
other
voting.
agencies in there.
Yeah,
So as for the vehicles.
So DSS will be partially disbanded?
Yes.
It would be the only thing in there. You wouldn't have drug task force voting and all that, like you do in Rosedale.
So I did see that many cars, but there was a whole lot of them. Approximately how many workers do you have working in your agency?
We have approximately 39 workers.
So, and about how many work?
Usually we're partially staffed every single day.
What's partial?
14, 15, maybe that for benefit side.
And Reverend Watson just mentioned to me that we may have undercounted the number of parking spots in that lot across the street. You said you counted about 30.
There's,
It's not marked.
they're not marked. It goes all the way back. There's 8 to 12 in each row, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 rows.
And I would add that the parking lot is actually larger than the paved area.
Yes.
It also encompasses the gravel area that is not currently paved. So it's actually larger than the paved spot that you see.
So my count reflects the space for the full parking area.
Yeah.
But there's quite a bit of parking space
I would
in that
hope that the
area.
city would consider a crosswalk from the parking lot to, I don't think there's currently a crosswalk.
Used to be one.
Most did it. Anyway,
Okay.
And you also would need to consider that there is a parking lot in the back too.
right, yeah.
How can we stop people from not
Okay.
parking in front of my house. How can we stop that? You know, because if I leave,
All right,
If I
Ms.
leave-
Moncrief, work with me here, please. Okay, so, sorry, this is the time for us to ask questions of them.
3 minutes wasn't a long time to,
Yeah, sorry.
and there wasn't many people who wanted to
Sorry.
speak.
I mean, it's 6:30 right now. I mean, we've been here for 2 hours, and I mean, I'm trying to move this along. Thank you. Do you anticipate increased lighting on the outside of your building for security purposes?
Right, I mean,
I don't know what's there now.
how much is there now? Greg?
The lights,
Greg was the pastor at Christ when it was, so he knows it better than I do.
there is a lighted sidewalk out front. There are 3 lights along the back parking lot. There is a light in the parking lot across the street.
Okay. And those lights have been there for a while, so.
But they've been there, I've been here since 2020, they've been there longer than me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, one of them needs to be fixed, it keeps
blinking
in my eyes.
I have no problem.
Drive past that on the way home.
Do you think that, I mean, would you be opposed to signage, either directing traffic or putting up no parking signs, no parking here, to alleviate some of what we might think might be a problem?
So are you asking about putting signage along the street to keep people from parking in front of other individuals' homes?
That, and to make sure the alley doesn't get blocked in any way.
You can't do that. Streetwise, it's city right of way, so anybody can park
Anybody
there,
park
whether
on the
they're in
street,
that
right.
building or anybody
Yeah, and I
else.
don't think there's any parking on street on Highland. I mean, that's a good, so it would be either across the street.
As the director of Embrace, I'll be willing to work with the community in any way possible that is legal. You know, Embrace, our ideal is to do ministry with, not ministry for. And we want to work with the community and be a genuine part of the community. So as director, I'll be willing to work with the community in any way possible.
Would it be possible for you to submit a plan for your, whatever upgrade you're gonna do inside the building for your office space? I understand that if you're gonna have movable cubicle walls in here, that's something temporary.
Right, so social services has agreed to, in addition to the cubicles, in addition to running their own like Ethernet cable and providing their own secure internet, the one permanent change that they would make is to install a chairlift, because the building is not as accessible as it should be. So it would get, you know what I'm talking about, those chairs.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I'm just trying to think, that's gonna require a permit, so.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay,
Absolutely.
we're on the same page, we're good. All right, folks, anybody have anything else they need to ask?
Council.
I'm good.
All right, I'm gonna call for a motion.
I make a motion for rezoning request of Christ United Methodist Church from R3 to C1. The lot is described as 14-2-3-1, located at 200 East Foot Street. I would recommend this be considered as a special exception. This would allow for the use as requested, but would not affect the current zoning.
So, just to clarify that you all understand. So what he's recommending is a special exception be granted if it's approved by Planning Commission for recommendation to council to allow the use that you're proposing there, but not change the zoning itself of the parcel. So the parcel will remain zoned R3. But if council approves and Planning Commission recommends to council and council approves, then the special exception would result in a special use permit being issued for your use as requested for the property. But if the use were to cease for a period of more than 2 years, if I'm correct about this, then that use would be disallowed from that point forward and would require anything other than allowed residential uses would require you to come back and talk to us again before you could proceed with a use like that.
So we would be able to continue to use it for church purposes, but be able to
Yes,
use
so
the other part
in our
for-
city ordinance, and this is a good clarification as well, there's an exception for churches, places of religious worship, to exist within residential districts. This isn't common in other areas, but in Covington, we have that in our ordinance. So the underlying zoning already allows for religious purposes at the site. So that's something that will still be in effect because the zoning would still apply, but the special exception would allow the use for office space as well, as presented tonight. So
Is that the building, you're saying building only?
it would be the building, and they're discussing the associated parking and things. So
the whole property.
the whole property, yep. So the parcel is identified in the application, and we'll include since the parcel, and I think we need to actually clarify that in the minutes, that this is including the use of the remote parking lot for the property to be used as associated use, because that is a remote.
Can you reflect
parking
that
lot.
without going back all through, back to the whole thing again?
Mhm.
Cool deal. Okay, we like having parking lot.
Including the parking.
So, I don't know off the top of my head, because it wasn't part of the application.
Probably in ours,
Yeah, I would have to look at that one.
because that was a house there at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, but we would have to look, but the reason why it wasn't identified in your application is part of the rezoning. So if we're gonna do that, we will need to identify that parcel. Ms. Roldan's gonna try to see if she can find that parcel number. And then you'll have to.
We need to go back through it?
Motion, yeah, you would have to withdraw and redo the motion to affect that parcel as well. If that's what he wants to do. I can't tell him what to do. So,
I dropped out of an urban and regional
Wouldn't you
planning
have
program
to,
for the seminary. I guess I should.
Wouldn't you have to treat that parcel separate as far as zoning?
so remote parking lots can be allowed under our ordinances. They do need to be, and this one it was probably there before the enacting of the ordinance. I don't know that for sure. That's prior to my tenure here. But if so, if it was a remote parking lot and it's there, there's supposed to be a recording of that and a documentation. So I would think if we're going to do this, we would probably want to legitimize that parking lot as part of the process as well. I wasn't anticipating this because it wasn't identified in the application.
It's R3.
It's R3. Yeah, so.
Okay, do you have a
A tax number?
lot number?
So it can go through just as part of the special exception that it's allowed. But the special exception is a way of allowing any use that's not normally allowed on a parcel through approval by council, right? So any use that's not normal in the district, council can grant a special exception. And so if planning commission was recommending that you consider it as a special exception and the applicant is willing to alter their application to that, I think that we can probably move forward.
As soon as I get a lot
As
number.
long as the,
It's 14-2
Wait a minute, 14-2.
-1 -10.
Okay. We are going to,
so I would ask Mr. Lamb to withdraw his
you need to
first.
withdraw your first recommendation.
And then,
That is withdrawn, and I'm gonna call for another recommendation, an amended recommendation. So, yep. Right here. What you read first, and then parking lot. Sorry.
I I make a motion for rezoning the request of Christ United Methodist Church from R3 to C1. The lot is described as 14-2-3-1-10, and that's,
Okay, so are we recommending a special exception or a rezoning? Because you just recommended a rezoning.
We're gonna recommend that it be, special exception, but go ahead and read the rest of the description.
and parking lot described as 14-2-1-10. I would recommend this be considered as a special exemption. This would allow for the use as requested, but would not affect the current zoning.
Are we legal?
That last statement sounded correct to me, for a special exception allowing the remote parking lot as well as the uses of an office, and then the remaining underlying uses identified as residential, which includes religious worship, would still remain intact
So it will remain R3 with a special exception.
to allow the office use.
Okay.
As he presented it.
Planning Commission, we need to vote
You
on the
need a second.
recommendation.
You need a second.
I'm sorry?
You need a
I
second
need a
first.
second. Sorry, I'm out of order. Roll call, please.
Chairman Morgan,
4.
Mr. Lamb,
Four.
Mr. Smith,
4.
We move this to City Council for consideration.
I move for approval.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, questions? Becky, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carson,
4.
Mr. Ford,
4.
Vice Mayor Frazier,
4.
Mayor Seibel.
4.
Wow. And motion carried. I don't know what to do now, I didn't look that far.
Legally contacting, you all.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time, I want to thank you for your patience, I want to thank you for the seat endurance, and I will declare our meeting adjourned.
Council, I make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.